Detroit's skyline shimmered under the pale morning sun, its glass towers catching the light like polished steel. Among them, the headquarters of Smith Tech Innovations stood tall and proud, a symbol of rebirth in a city that had once been known only for engines and assembly lines. Inside, marble floors reflected the footsteps of engineers, executives, and dreamers chasing innovation. And in that same building, pushing a silent mop across the lobby floor, was Femi Bankole. He moved with quiet precision, his dark eyes focused, his earbuds humming with faint Afrobeat rhythms that only he could hear. To anyone passing by, he was just another janitor, invisible, forgettable. But beneath his calm exterior lived a man of fire. Femi had a degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Lagos, though it meant little in a country where his immigration papers labelled him unskilled labour. Every dawn, he told himself that sweeping those spotless halls wasn't defeat, it was strategy. He'd once told his friend Chuka, "A seed buried in dirt doesn't mean it's dead." It's preparing 32 floors above Femi, Lauren Smith stood in her glass-walled office, a world away from the faint smell of cleaning solution below. Blonde hair tied neatly, grey power suit flawless, she exuded an effortless confidence that made board members both respect and fear her. She was the billionaire CEO of Smith Tech, a company that had redefined urban energy systems, turning Detroit into a model of sustainability. The media called her the genius of green technology. Investors called her ruthlessly efficient. But behind the tinted glass and perfect posture, Lauren was tired. Her empire had grown faster than her ability to breathe. Every decision came with a cost, and lately the cost was her peace of mind. Her father had died when she was 16, leaving her his unfinished dream of innovation and his unfinished debts. She had clawed her way out of bankruptcy, coded her first prototype in a cramped apartment, and built a company from scratch. Now, at 37, she could buy anything, except rest. That Monday morning, Smith Tech's R&D lab was buzzing with panic. A prototype battery, one set to be unveiled to investors, had overheated, triggering a power surge across part of the building. The engineers scrambled, alarms blinked, and in the chaos, Lauren herself appeared, heels clicking sharply against the tile. "What happened?" she demanded. "Ma'am, we're not sure." The cooling module failed unexpectedly. One engineer stammered. Lauren's eyes darted to the console. "And you shut it down, right?" "We tried, but the manual override isn't responding." The lights flickered. Someone cursed. Someone else called for maintenance. And that's when Femi arrived, quiet, unnoticed, mop still in hand. He'd been cleaning the lower corridor when the alarms went off, and instinct, not authority, led him there. He saw the control board flashing red, recognized the schematics from old engineering diagrams, and felt his old instincts kick in. "Don't touch the coolant valves!" he shouted, startling the room. "You'll cause a thermal imbalance." Lauren turned, eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" He hesitated. "Maintenance and ma'am, but that circuit, this is a restricted area," snapped one of the engineers. Femi ignored him. He stepped closer to the console, pointed to a specific line on the monitor. "There, that circuit's running a closed feedback loop. If you disconnect this wire, it resets the failsafe." Lauren watched him. There was something in his voice, calm, certain, technical. "Do it," she ordered. The engineer hesitated, then obeyed. Seconds later, the alarms stopped. The hum of machinery quieted. The room exhaled. Lauren's eyes lingered on the man with the mop. "What's your name?" "Femi, ma'am. Femi Bankole, noted," she said simply, but the moment stayed with her long after she left the lab. 2 days later, Femi was sweeping the lobby again when an assistant approached. "Mr. Bankole? Ms. Smith would like to see you upstairs." He froze, hand tightening on the mop handle. "Miss Smith, The CEO? Yes, she said immediately. The elevator ride to the 32nd floor felt like a trip to another planet. When the doors opened, the air smelled of expensive coffee and ambition. Lauren's office was all glass and sunlight, Detroit's skyline sprawling behind her like a painting. She gestured for him to sit. "You saved my lab from burning down," she said. "I looked into it. Your background is in engineering." "Yes, ma'am." "Mechanical. I used to design cooling systems in Lagos. So why are you cleaning floors in my building?" He smiled faintly. "Because the American dream requires papers, ma'am. And mine are still temporary." Lauren leaned back, studying him. "You're overqualified for this job." "I'm grateful for it," he replied simply. She liked his humility. It wasn't submission, just quiet dignity. For a woman used to flattery and fear, that was refreshing. After a long pause, she said, "I could use someone like you in facilities. There's an internal position opening. Better pay, better hours. You'd report to the engineering team directly." Femi's heart pounded. "You'd do that? For me?" "For my company," she corrected, though her tone softened. "You clearly have talent. I reward talent. The promotion changed everything." Femi traded his mop for a maintenance badge and a toolkit. He was still in blue overalls, but now he had purpose, fixing cooling systems, calibrating thermostats, occasionally assisting with technical diagnostics. He worked quietly, efficiently, always early, never distracted. But people noticed. So did Lauren. She began to greet him by name when she passed him in the halls. Sometimes she'd linger, asking small questions. "How's the team treating you?" Or, "Do you miss home?" At first he answered cautiously. "Home is far, ma'am, but not forgotten." Then, over time, he loosened. He told her about his mother in Ibadan, who still sent him voice notes every Sunday, about the late-night jobs he took fixing cars to afford rent, about the cold winters that felt like punishment. Lauren found herself listening, really listening, for the first time in years. One evening, the company hosted a charity gala at a downtown hotel. Femi wasn't invited. He was assigned to oversee the facility team, ensuring everything ran smoothly. Still, from behind the service corridor, he caught a glimpse of Lauren, radiant in a silver gown, her laugh light but tired. She looked different outside her glass fortress, almost human, almost lonely. Later that night, as the event wound down, Femi was fixing a jammed service door when Lauren appeared unexpectedly, shoes in hand. "You're still working." "Some doors don't fix themselves, ma'am," he said, smiling. She chuckled softly, leaning against the wall. "Neither do companies." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Not awkward, but charged. Two people from worlds apart, standing in the same dim corridor, both exhausted, both chasing something that always seemed just out of reach. "You ever wish you'd chosen differently?" she asked suddenly. Femi thought for a long time. "Every day. But I also believe each road, no matter how rough, leads somewhere meant Lauren's gaze lingered. That's optimistic. It's survival," he said quietly. Something in his tone struck her, a kind of strength that didn't need to shout. After that night, things changed subtly. Lauren began to notice Femi in ways she didn't understand. When she passed him in the lab, she found herself slowing down. When he spoke, his accent rolled through her mind long after. She scolded herself. "He's your employee, Lauren. A janitor turned technician. Don't romanticize kindness, but emotions aren't logical." And for Femi, admiration grew into something deeper, not for her wealth or beauty, but for her relentless drive, the way she carried her burdens like armor. He saw the loneliness beneath her success, the humanity behind the headlines. One evening, after everyone had left, he found her still in her office, face buried in spreadsheets. "You haven't gone home?" he asked. She looked up, surprised. "You haven't either." He smiled. "Fair point." He hesitated, then added, "You know, Mom, machines don't run well without rest." "People too." She laughed quietly. "I'll try to remember that." And for the first time in years, Lauren closed her laptop early. By the end of that year, the atmosphere at SmithTech felt different. Femi's contributions were undeniable, efficiency improved, maintenance costs dropped, morale rose. Lauren's leadership softened, too. She listened more, smiled more. Still, whispers began to stir. Employees noticed how often the CEO lingered near the lower floors, how her tone changed when speaking to the Nigerian guy. Femi heard the murmurs but ignored them. He had learned long ago that respect and resentment often walked hand in hand. Lauren, however, couldn't ignore them forever. Her board had already questioned her favoritism. She brushed it off, but deep down, she knew something inside her was shifting, something that no corporate policy could regulate. Every time Femi walked into the room, calm and confident in his quiet way, she felt an unfamiliar warmth rise in her chest. She told herself it was admiration, professional gratitude, nothing more. But deep down, she wasn't sure she believed that anymore. The first snow of December dusted Detroit's skyline like powdered sugar, coating the city in a quiet stillness. Inside SmithTech Innovations, however, the air buzzed with motion. Engineers rushed to meet deadlines, executives prepared for quarterly reviews, and at the center of it all, Lauren Smith sat behind her desk, her mind elsewhere. She was thinking about Femi. In the weeks since their late-night conversation in the service corridor, she had tried, and failed, to push him out of her thoughts. There was something about his steadiness, his refusal to be intimidated by her status, that lingered. She admired that. She needed that, even if she couldn't admit it aloud. Lauren prided herself on control, over her company, her image, her emotions. But lately she found herself wondering what control was really worth if it left her feeling this empty. Femi was fixing a sensor on the rooftop heating unit when a call came through his company radio. "Maintenance. Report to the CEO's office." Immediately he froze, gloved hands pausing mid-motion. The last time he'd been summoned there, he'd walked out with a promotion. What could this be now? When he arrived, Lauren gestured toward the seat across from her desk. She looked composed, but there was a spark in her eyes, the kind that appeared when an idea had taken hold. "Femi," she began, "I've been reviewing a proposal from our R&D team. They're developing an energy-efficient thermal system for our new headquarters. The design is sound, but something's missing. Someone who actually understands the practical side of machinery." He nodded slowly. "Yes, Ma'am. I want you to work with them," she said simply. Femi blinked. "Me? On a design project?" Lauren smiled faintly. "You've already proven you understand our systems better than most. You'll assist as a technical consultant. Temporarily, of course, but it's a start." He didn't speak for a moment. The words felt too big to believe. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," she said, her tone lighter now. "We start Monday." He grinned, the first real smile she'd seen from him. Bright, genuine, full of life. "Yes, Ma'am. I won't disappoint you. I know you won't," she replied. The transition wasn't easy. SmithTech's R&D team, composed mostly of graduates from elite universities, didn't know what to make of the Nigerian janitor suddenly sitting in their design meetings. Some were polite, others indifferent, and a few quietly resentful. During one early session, an engineer named Ryan smirked as Femi suggested a more efficient airflow valve for the prototype. "Interesting idea," Ryan said. Did you learn that while mopping the server room? Laughter rippled across the table. Lauren's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Actually, Mr. Bankole's suggestion reduces thermal pressure by 15%. I suggest we test it before we mock it. The room went silent. Femi glanced at her, and she gave him a small nod. Silent reassurance that he belonged there. It was the first time anyone had defended him like that in years. Over the next few weeks, Femi's designs began to speak for themselves. His practical insights, small tweaks, overlooked details, transformed the efficiency of the project. Even Ryan grudgingly began to consult him. Soon, his name appeared in internal reports, attached to successful prototypes. Lauren watched his progress quietly. Every time she passed the lab, she caught glimpses of him, sleeves rolled up, explaining a concept to engineers twice his rank, his voice calm and assured. It made her proud. One evening, after reviewing a draft report, she called him into her office. "I've seen your work," she said. "The team's performance has improved since you joined." He smiled modestly. "They've been kind enough to listen." She leaned back. "You've earned it." "You're not just fixing machines anymore, Femi. You're building something." He hesitated before replying. "If I'm building anything, Mom, it's because you gave me the bricks." The honesty in his words disarmed her. She looked away for a moment, then said softly, "Call me Lauren. At least when it's just us." He froze, uncertain. "I don't want to overstep." "You're not," she said. "Titles are useful, but sometimes they get in the way." He nodded slowly. "All right, then. Lauren." Her name sounded different in his mouth. Warmer, somehow. Real. As winter deepened, their paths crossed more often. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes not. They talked about work at first, but conversations began to drift, to music, culture, memories. Femi spoke of Lagos, the traffic, the heat, the sound of street vendors shouting over car horns. Lauren spoke of her late father, whose failed inventions had fueled her own drive to succeed. There was laughter now, where once there had only been formality. One evening, as they stood by the office window overlooking a snow-covered Detroit, Femi said quietly, "You know, I used to think success looked like this. Tall buildings, shiny floors. But now I think it's just being seen." Lauren looked at him, his reflection framed in the glass beside hers. "And do you feel seen here?" He met her gaze. "More than I ever expected." She didn't respond, but something in her chest tightened. By March, rumors had begun to swirl. A CEO and her favorite technician staying late together. Conversations that lasted longer than necessary. People talked. They always did. Lauren heard whispers in board meetings. Femi caught glances in hallways. Neither acknowledged them, but both felt the tension building. One afternoon, while reviewing data in her office, Lauren sighed heavily. "They're talking again," she said without looking up. Femi paused. "About us?" "Yes, they think I'm distracted." He frowned. "If I'm the problem, I'll ask for reassignment." She looked up sharply. "You're not the problem, Femi." They are. People hate what they don't understand. Still, she could sense the danger. For someone in her position, perception was everything. She'd built her empire on credibility, not scandal. But when she looked at him, at the quiet integrity in his eyes, she couldn't bring herself to push him away. Late one evening, while reviewing payroll records, Lauren noticed something odd. Femi's visa was due to expire in 3 months. She called him in the next day. "Femi," she said carefully, "I was reviewing HR files. Your work permit, it's expiring soon." He nodded. "Yes, Ma'am. I've applied for renewal, but the process is slow. If it doesn't come through in time, I may have to step back." "Step back?" she repeated. "I mean leave." Temporarily, the thought unsettled her more than she expected. That can't happen. You're essential to this project. He gave a resigned smile. The government doesn't care how essential I am, Lauren. She leaned forward. There must be another way. There isn't, he said quietly. I've checked. But Lauren Smith wasn't the kind of woman who accepted no easily. 2 days later, she called him into her office again. I spoke with our legal department, she began. There's a program for skilled specialists under corporate sponsorship. Smith Tech can file for your residency, if you agree. His eyes widened. That's a big step. It's a formality, she said quickly. The company needs you, and it's the right thing to do. He hesitated. People will talk. Let them, she replied. You've earned your place. Femi looked at her. Really looked. Why are you doing this for me, Lauren? She held his gaze. Because I believe in you. And maybe because you remind me what this company was supposed to stand for, giving people a chance. Silence lingered between them. Gratitude, admiration, something unspoken. Thank you, he said finally, voice low. You don't have to thank me, she whispered. Just stay. As paperwork moved forward, scrutiny intensified. Reporters began sniffing around. Investors asked pointed questions. Lauren tried to appear unfazed, but the pressure mounted. One morning, her CFO stormed into her office. Lauren, the sponsorship for this janitor, it's reckless. The optics alone. His name is Femi, she interrupted coolly. And he's not a janitor anymore. That's not the point. People will say you're personally involved with him. She met his gaze evenly. Let them say what they want. I don't run this company on gossip, the CFO left fuming, but Lauren sat still for a long time after, staring out the window at the city she'd fought to rebuild. Maybe she was reckless. Maybe she didn't care anymore. One night, after everyone had gone, Femi knocked gently on her office door. She looked up, weary but relieved to see him. I signed the papers, he said. The sponsorship forms. Good, she said, standing. That's good news. He hesitated. I just wanted to say, this means more than you know. When I came here, I was invisible. You saw me. That's something I'll never forget. She stepped closer. The space between them felt suddenly small, charged with emotion neither dared name. I didn't do it out of pity, Femi, she said softly. I did it because you earned it. You changed this place. And maybe you've changed me too. For a moment they simply stood there, two lives that should never have intersected, drawn together by something that didn't fit in logic or language. And then, before she could think, Lauren reached for his hand. It was a small gesture, brief and uncertain, but it felt like a door opening. Femi didn't pull away. Outside, the city lights flickered in the falling snow. Inside, something fragile and powerful began to take shape between them. Neither of them knew what lay ahead, the backlash, the headlines, the personal cost. But for that single moment, the world felt still. Lauren, for the first time in years, felt human again. Femi, for the first time since leaving home, felt he truly belonged. And though neither spoke it aloud, both understood. Some chances change everything. First headline appeared on a cold Thursday morning. Billionaire CEO sponsors immigrant employee, nepotism or something more. It flashed across news outlets faster than anyone at Smith Tech could react. Within hours, the company's PR department was in chaos. Phones rang non-stop, emails poured in, and investors demanded answers. Lauren sat behind her desk, the newspaper spread open before her. The article wasn't cruel, not yet, but it was invasive. It questioned her motives, hinted at scandal, and paired her photo beside Femi's in a way that made corporate sponsorship sound like something sordid. She rubbed her temples. So it begins, she murmured. At first, Femi didn't even know. He'd been in the engineering bay all morning, tightening bolts on the prototype's cooling core, humming softly to himself. When he finally glanced at his phone during lunch, a message from Chuka, his friend from church, stopped him cold. "Bro, you're on the news." He opened the link, and there it was. His name, his photo, and a headline that felt heavier than the machines he worked on. When he walked through the corridors later that day, whispers trailed behind him. Some were curious, others cruel. "Guess being nice to the boss pays off." One intern muttered, "Maybe I should start mopping on the 32nd floor." Another joked. Femi said nothing. He simply kept walking, jaw tight, pride his only shield. By the time he reached Lauren's office, security guards were stationed outside. Reporters had already tried sneaking into the lobby. He knocked once and entered. Lauren looked up, her expression unreadable, tired but composed. "You've seen it," she said. "Yes," he replied quietly. "They make it sound like—" "I know," she interrupted. "I called PR, they're handling it." Femi hesitated, then added, "Do you want me to step back from the project?" She looked at him sharply. "No, that's exactly what they want, for us to retreat and confirm their narrative." He nodded, but his eyes betrayed his worry. "It's different for you, Lauren. They'll forgive a billionaire. For me, it could mean losing everything." Her voice softened. "You won't lose anything." "Not while I'm here by the following week." The whispers had reached the boardroom. Lauren walked into the quarterly meeting to find 12 faces waiting, most of them lined with disapproval. The CFO spoke first. "Lauren, this situation, with the employee you're sponsoring, it's become a distraction." "His name is Femi," she replied evenly. "Fine. Femi. Whatever his name is, this story is damaging our credibility. Investors are calling me hourly." Lauren clasped her hands on the table. "What's our actual concern? Perception or performance?" "Because our numbers are up 14% this quarter, largely thanks to his innovations." A board member across the table leaned forward. "Lauren, you can't ignore optics. You're a public figure, a single-woman CEO, and now this story of you and your employee—" "Stop," she said firmly. "You're suggesting my professional judgment is compromised because I showed compassion to someone talented and hard-working." The room fell silent. She looked around at them, people she'd led for years, people who'd once admired her for her boldness. If that's how we define leadership now, maybe I'm in the wrong company. And with that, she stood and walked out. Outside Smith Tech, the media frenzy grew. Reporters camped by the front gates, snapping photos of anyone who looked remotely like Femi. Social media divided into camps. Some applauded Lauren's modern humanity. Others accused her of corporate favoritism. For Femi, it was suffocating. His small apartment became a hiding place. Every knock on the door made his heart race. One evening, after another exhausting day, he sat alone in the break room, staring at his untouched cup of coffee. Lauren walked in quietly, holding 2 mugs. "You look like you've wrestled a tornado," she said, setting one down beside him. He managed a faint smile. "Feels about right." She sat across from him. "You don't deserve this." He shrugged. "Maybe not. But I knew what could happen. The world doesn't like seeing lines crossed. Lines." She repeated softly. "Between what and what?" "Power and struggle," he said. "Wealth and survival." "White and black." The words hung in the air. Lauren met his eyes. "Do you resent me for all this?" Femi shook his head. "No, you gave me a chance. I just wish the world could see it for what it really is. And what is it really?" she asked. He thought for a long moment. Respect. Maybe something more, but mostly respect. She nodded, quietly grateful. But not everyone inside Smith Tech shared that respect. One evening, Ryan, the same engineer who'd once mocked Femi, leaked internal documents to a tech blog. The files included Femi's work visa application, the sponsorship forms, and even private internal emails between Lauren and HR. The headline the next morning was worse than before. Leaked memos reveal CEO's special treatment of foreign employee. Lauren's phone buzzed non-stop. The board demanded an emergency meeting. Legal counsel advised her to issue a statement denying any personal involvement. But that would mean disowning the very person she'd fought to protect. Instead, she did something uncharacteristic. She asked Femi for advice. They met in the parking lot that night, under the flickering streetlights. The air was sharp with cold. "I can't lie," she said. "I won't." Femi looked up at the snow swirling around them. "Then tell the truth. Tell them why you did it. Not for me. For the values this company was built on." She smiled faintly. "You sound like my conscience." "Maybe someone has to be," he said quietly. 2 days later, Lauren sat in front of a camera for a live television interview. The journalist wasted no time. "Mr. Smith, you're accused of favoritism, sponsoring a lower-level employee for permanent residency. Some say this crosses ethical lines. What do you say to that?" Lauren met the camera's gaze. "I say that Smith Tech was founded on innovation, and innovation doesn't care about race, class, or immigration status. It cares about talent. Mr. Bankole has proven his worth beyond question. If giving him a legal path to stay and continue contributing is wrong, then I'm proud to be wrong." The interviewer pressed on. "And the rumors of a personal relationship?" Lauren didn't flinch. "I don't respond to gossip. What I can say is that I respect Mr. Bankole deeply as a man of integrity, intelligence, and courage." That's all. Her calm defiance made headlines again. But this time, something shifted. Half the city applauded her honesty. Online, people began calling her the CEO who stood up for fairness. And quietly, in that small Detroit apartment, Femi smiled for the first time in weeks. It was late January when the city was hit by an unexpected blizzard. Power lines went down, and even Smith Tech's grid, supposedly storm-proof, flickered out. Femi volunteered to stay overnight with the maintenance team. When he discovered Lauren had done the same, he wasn't surprised. By midnight, the entire building was dark except for emergency lights. The two of them ended up in the control room, side by side, surrounded by humming generators. "Funny," Lauren said, rubbing her hands for warmth. "A billion-dollar company, and here we are in the dark." He chuckled. "Technology bows to weather sometimes." They sat quietly for a moment, listening to the wind howl against the glass. "Do you ever think," Lauren said softly, "that all this, the fame, the pressure, might not be worth it?" He thought for a long while before answering. "I think worth is what we decide it to be. For me, this being here, working, having purpose, it's worth every storm." Her gaze softened. "Even this one?" He smiled. "Especially this one." They sat like that for hours, not talking much, just sharing silence that said everything words couldn't. When power returned the next morning, something had shifted, not just between them, but in how the world saw them. The interview had softened public opinion. The company stabilized. Investors returned. Even the board grudgingly admitted that firing Femi would look worse than keeping him. Within weeks, the storm began to clear. Lauren reinstated Femi's name on the upcoming patent proposal, a quiet but powerful statement that his contributions mattered. When he saw it, he said only 3 words. "You kept faith." She smiled. "You earned it." On a quiet Sunday evening, Lauren invited him to a local art gallery, neutral ground, away from the noise. They walked slowly among the exhibits, the hum of distant music surrounding them. "Things are finally settling," she said. "Feels like it." He replied, "Though part of me still expects another storm." "There will always be storms, Femi," she said. "But I've learned something." "What's that?" "That the right people don't run when it rains." He smiled gently. "Then I guess I'm staying." They both laughed softly, the first true laughter in months. As they stood before a painting of a cityscape under heavy rain, Lauren whispered, almost to herself, "It's strange how chaos can bring clarity." Femi looked at her, the faint reflection of streetlights glinting in his eyes. "Maybe storms don't break us. Maybe they just wash away what doesn't belong." She nodded. "And what's left? Whatever's real," he said quietly. By spring, the worst had passed. Femi's residency papers were approved. SmithTech's reputation had not only survived, but grown stronger. And though no official statement was ever made about their relationship, those who worked closest to them knew. Respect had deepened into something steadier, something that didn't need to be labeled. Lauren and Femi continued their work side by side, CEO and engineer, leader and dreamer, no longer bound by fear or rumor, but by something simpler, mutual belief. And in Detroit, the city of resilience, their story became quietly legendary, not of scandal, but of second chances. The first day of spring arrived with sunlight pouring through Detroit's steel skyline like redemption. After months of tension, the city breathed again. SmithTech's headquarters buzzed with cautious optimism. New investors, new projects, and, quietly, new beginnings. But for Femi and Lauren, peace was a fragile thing. They both knew storms often return just when the skies look clear. When the call came from Geneva, it felt almost unreal. The Global Innovation Council, a consortium that funded humanitarian tech, had seen Femi's designs for sustainable cooling systems. They wanted SmithTech to present at their next summit, and specifically, they wanted Femi to lead the presentation. Lauren was thrilled. "You're the best person for it," she said in her office, sliding the invitation across her desk. Femi hesitated. "Geneva. That's huge. It's more than huge," she said, smiling. "It's history. This could redefine how the world sees both you and SmithTech." He smiled faintly. "And maybe how they see us." Lauren met his gaze, but didn't reply. The silence between them had changed over time. It was no longer awkward, no longer full of things unsaid. It was simply alive. But peace never stays untested. Just days before their flight, another whisper surfaced online. A tech journalist claimed to have evidence that Lauren manipulated company funds to privately sponsor Femi's trip abroad. It was a lie, but in a world hungry for scandal, truth came second to headlines. Lauren's lawyer called her that night. "It's gaining traction," he said. "If this continues, the SEC could launch an inquiry. I'd advise postponing the trip." She hung up, exhaling slowly. Femi found her in the executive lounge, staring out at the city lights. "They're at it again, aren't they?" he asked softly. She turned. "Yes, they want me to cancel, to hide until it dies down. And will you?" She looked out again at the skyline. "Do you think I should?" He stepped closer, his voice steady. "I think if you stop now, they win." Again, Lauren studied him for a long moment. This man who had walked through fire beside her, who had carried his dignity like armor. "Then we go," she said. "Together." They left Detroit under gray skies that soon gave way to sunlight. The flight was long, quiet at first. Femi stared out the window, lost in thought. Lauren worked through her notes, though she barely read them. At one point, she glanced over and said softly, "You still get nervous before big moments, don't you?" He smiled. "Every time, but nervousness means I care." "Good," she said, smiling back, "because the world's about to care too." The Geneva Convention Center shimmered with glass and light. Flags from 50 nations lined the hall. Cameras flashed, translators whispered, and the air was thick with anticipation. When Femi took the stage, his hands trembled, just for a second. Then he began. He spoke not like a corporate engineer, but like a man who had lived his subject. He told the story of growing up in Lagos, where power cuts were a daily struggle. He spoke of how one machine could change lives, hospitals running longer, food staying fresh, small businesses surviving the heat. The room listened. And then they rose, a standing ovation that echoed like thunder. Lauren, watching from the front row, felt tears sting her eyes. For the first time in months, the world wasn't looking at her with suspicion. They were looking at him, the man she had believed in from the beginning. After the presentation, they were flooded with congratulations. But later that evening, a man in a dark suit approached them at the hotel lounge. "Mr. Bankole," he said, extending a card. "I represent Thermex Global. We'd like to make you an offer, personally. Lead engineer, full creative control, salary beyond Smith Tech's scale." Femi blinked. "That's generous." Lauren said nothing, her posture still but her eyes alert. The man continued, "We admire what you've built. But a talent like yours shouldn't be tied down by corporate politics. You deserve freedom." When he left, silence stretched between them. Lauren finally said, "You should think about it." Femi frowned. "You want me to leave?" "I want you to grow," she said quietly. "Even if that means somewhere else." He studied her face, calm, kind, selfless as always, and something in his chest tightened. "What if my growth isn't somewhere else?" he said. She blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe my purpose isn't just in machines or designs. Maybe it's in proving that the world can still believe in good people. And maybe you're part of that purpose." Lauren exhaled slowly, caught between pride and something deeper. "Femi." He shook his head gently. "Don't worry. I'm not walking away." The flight home was different. The noise of scandal had faded into applause. By the time they landed, Smith Tech's public image had transformed, not because of money, but because of authenticity. People saw them for what they were, a CEO who led with heart, and a man who rose by merit. The next morning, Lauren gathered her staff in the main hall. "Smith Tech," she began, "has always been about innovation. But today I want us to remember something else. Innovation means courage. It means believing in people before the world does." She turned toward Femi. "We believed in one, and he believed back." The applause was long and genuine. For once, no one whispered. Later that evening, they walked along the Detroit riverfront. The water shimmered gold in the setting sun. "It feels different now," Lauren said. "Lighter." Femi nodded. "Maybe storms don't disappear. Maybe we just learn how to walk through them." She smiled faintly. "You always have a way of turning pain into poetry." He chuckled. "You turned chaos into compassion. I guess we're even." They stopped near the railing, the breeze cool against their faces. "Do you ever think about how strange this all is?" Lauren asked. "Two people from different worlds, somehow ending up here?" "Not strange," he said. "Just meant." She turned to him then, really turned, and for a long, quiet moment, the distance between them wasn't professional or cultural or even cautious. It was human. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. The city lights glowed softly around them, and for once, the skyline didn't seem made of steel and glass. It seemed alive, warm, forgiving, infinite. The following spring, SmithTech opened a new division, the Bankole Initiative, dedicated to sustainable tech for developing regions. Femi led it with Lauren's full support. Their partnership became the company's heartbeat, not romanticized, not scandalized, but respected. Reporters occasionally asked if there had ever been something more between them. Lauren's answer never changed. There was always respect. And in a world that forgets what that means, that's enough. But those who truly watched them, how they shared quiet glances in boardrooms, how their ideas finished each other's sentences, knew that respect had grown into something deeper, steadier, and lasting. Something that didn't need to be declared. One evening, long after the last employees had gone home, Femi stood by the office window, looking out at the skyline that had once felt so cold. Lauren joined him, a cup of coffee in hand. "Still working?" she teased. "Just thinking," he said, "about how far things have come." She smiled. "And how far they'll still go." He turned to her. "Together?" "Always," she said. And beneath the silver skyline, two figures stood side by side. Not boss and employee, not savior and survivor, just two souls who refused to let the world define their worth. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please like, share, and subscribe to Boundless Echoes for more inspirational stories. We deeply appreciate your support. Comment where you are watching from so we can give you a shout-out. See you in our next video.